Well, it's done. And in part, one of my own wishes has been fulfilled. If Jim Harbaugh was going to be flirting with the NFL, for lack of a better term, every year while he was at Michigan, it was better that he moved on. And now he's moved on. About 15, 20 minutes ago, Adam Schefter released a report breaking that Jim Harbaugh had accepted the head coaching job with the Los Angeles Chargers of the National Football League. And now everyone else, ESPN, Ian Rappaport, they're all saying the same thing, which means this is likely true. 99.9% true, which it means it's probably it's a done deal. And likely Sherrone Moore is going to be promoted to be the next Michigan head coach. Jesse Minter, I expect, along with Jay Harbaugh, Michigan's defensive coordinator and special teams coordinator, will be departing, leaving for the Chargers with Jim Harbaugh. And that's really, that's that in terms of breaking news. In terms of Michigan's future, this is a pretty big deal because Sherrone Moore is going to be given the keys to one of the best programs in the country, the best developmental program in the country. He'll have to work on retaining this staff and still recruiting at a high level, as many schools are going to be trying to poach Michigan assistants. They're going to be trying to negatively recruit the Wolverines, and 2024 will be a big test for Sherrone Moore, who, again, 99% sure he'll be Michigan's next head coach. It was reported in many small circles and many rumors that he was the head coach in waiting after this season. And it's why Jim Harbaugh entrusted him to manage the games against Penn State, Maryland, and Ohio State while he was suspended. In all honesty, as a Michigan fan, it is what it is. I appreciate Jim Harbaugh going 86-25 at Michigan, winning the Wolverines 3 Big Ten titles, 1 national title, and over the past 3 years transforming this program into an elite program. A program that I only think is third fiddle behind Georgia and Alabama only. First in the Big Ten, ahead of everyone else but those two. And with Nick Saban retiring, and with the future always being uncertain, you never know. If Michigan plays its cards right, if they play the game of chess correctly, they outduel opponents both in conference and out of conference, they can continue to be a powerhouse. They could be perhaps a dynasty, one that maybe Harbaugh started and Sherrone Moore and other coaches simply continued. But that's getting way too far into the future. What I want to do today is answer any of your questions in the chat and just talk about this. Because this is, look, it's big news. I mean, this is, Nick Saban was the best head coach in college football. He's retired. Harbaugh at the end of the year was third best coach, only behind Nick Saban and Kirby Smart in my mind. He's now out of college football as well. We've had 2 elite college football coaches. Nick Saban's much better than Jim Harbaugh, but elite as in top 5, top 4 coaches. They're gone. Immediately gone. And now, in kind of a joking or all jokes aside way, now I think Ryan Day is once again the Big Ten's best head coach by the fact that Jim Harbaugh is leaving Michigan for the NFL. But I see that the chat is extremely active, so I want to get here and answer questions. Al Turkey, one of the greatest coaches in Michigan history. Thanks for everything, Jim. Yeah, seriously, I'm very grateful as a Michigan fan for Jim Harbaugh. My main worry is if the players jump ship like some of these other programs. I think that if Sherrone Moore is promoted, and I think that he will be, I don't think we will see many players leave or enter the transfer portal in response to this. And I think Jim Harbaugh has been honest with his players in the sense that he's He's telling them or telling recruits that he is pursuing NFL offers. Sup, Sam? Hi, SFS Inverted. How are you doing? I see many people commenting about my facial hair. I think it's not necessarily a disaster, but it's something that I tried and I'm not necessarily a big fan of. I'm going to grow out my beard again. But thank you. Thank you. Hi, Sam. First Instinct. Hire Minter. No, I think Sherrone Moore going 4-0 in this season for Michigan, this past season. I think he deserves the keys to the car. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell. Just want to say that as a reminder before we go moving forward. Tomorrow, I'm going to try and restart my live shows, which I go live every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so I'll be live again tomorrow around this time. But, yeah, Jim Harbaugh's gone. And what does that mean for the future of Michigan? Well, my predictions for the Big Ten next season, I kind of built in with the expectation that Jim Harbaugh might be leaving Michigan, though I didn't think he would leave after this year. I knew it was a possibility, but I leaned toward him coming back. He didn't. But Sherrone Moore has impressed me. I don't think there's going to be a big drop-off in 2024 in terms of like Jim Harbaugh coaching Michigan in 2024 versus Sherrone Moore coaching in 2024. I don't think there'll be much of a difference either way. I think anyone who changes their Michigan prediction because of this news in a drastic way, like if you had Michigan going 11-1 or 10-2 and you put them at 8-4 or 9-3 as a result, I think that's foolish. But long term is where this change could. There's a lot more variance. We don't know how the long term will look. We just don't. SFS Inverted, hire Parker Fleming. No, thank you. I want to keep my good punters and kickers. The guy with a few good seasons is now known as the greatest coach. The guy that steals signs goes out and pays people to steal signs is the greatest coach. The guy who almost got fired before, too, is great. Thomas Fidone. That's a nice name. This is definitely not Nebraska's Thomas Fidone's burner account. I think he's an elite head coach, sign stealing or not, few good seasons and a rough start or not. At the end of the day, he was one of the better head coaches in college football. Not Kirby Smart or Nick Saban, though. And there were some people in my Rose Bowl previews that told me that Jim Harbaugh's a better coach than Nick Saban. And then that's just purely nonsense. Run Doggy 17, nice hat. Thank you. Okay, let me see. Sam would make you very okay, enough with the trolling, even though it's funny. I think Michigan will have a down year next year, but I think their outlook looks elite. Interesting, SFS Inverted. Why do you think that? Okay. Yeah, so now we got around 50 of you all in here, which is very, very good. I might be talking about this for a long time, talking about Michigan football as well. But this is big news. It really is. I mean, Michigan's staff, maybe he'll take more than just Jesse Minter and Jay Harbaugh. And the more he takes, the more damage is done. But I think Jesse Minter is an NFL defensive coordinator. With Harbaugh gone, I don't know. I guess I don't view this as much of the same as I did when Nick Saban retired from Alabama. Obviously, that was a bigger deal, but I guess Alabama had to go out and hire a coach out of house, hire assistants out of house. Sherrone Moore coming in to Michigan might literally be plug and play outside of hiring replacement offensive and defensive coordinators. Like all the assistants outside of Jay Harbaugh, all the position coaches will probably be retained because it's late in the hiring cycle and you're quickly promoting from within, there's not much uncertainty. Sherrone Moore wouldn't want to change much of the staff anyway. At least I don't think. Yeah, let me see any other comments. Yeah, Chimichanga guy, welcome back. That's absolutely what needs to be done. They need to promote Sherrone Moore. And I haven't been able to get this out, but Michigan football really is, they're an interesting case. They really are. The way they won the national championship this year, the program that Harbaugh built, is unique in terms of recent memory, in terms of the BCS college football playoff era. Michigan was one of the few teams who didn't even have a 60% blue chip ratio and won it all. You must have, as of now, over 50%. That's what history says, of your roster being 4 or 5 star players to win it all. Most are above 60 or 70%. The way that Michigan football has coached and developed their players, I think, over the past 3 years, but particularly the past year, has been like no other. And I think that Michigan, as a result, has had somewhat of an impact on college football, not just on the Big Ten, but college football as a whole. And so has Georgia. And I think those two are tied in the way that they play football, focusing on defense. They want to ground and pound while having competent skill position play. And it's interesting. So I'm going to be making that video relatively shortly that will tie in with Jim Harbaugh and also Sherrone Moore, because I think that Sherrone Moore is a future great head coach. I think that Sherrone Moore right now is better than a lot of Power 5 head coaches. I think that the responsibility that he was given at Michigan, the trust that Harbaugh and the athletic department had in him to manage those games, and the fact that he's built great, near elite, dare I say it at times, elite offenses at Michigan by running the ball and being strong at the point of attack on the offensive line, utilizing tight ends. It really is a work of art. So maybe that's just me, but here we are. And he's going to the Chargers. Jim Harbaugh is. So this was really just an instant reaction. I'm probably going to stay on here longer and then get off. But I typically like to be engaged with the chat in these instant reactions. Okay. Look, man, as long as we hire more, I think we're okay as far as the immediate future with the roster. I totally agree with that. If he takes Jesse Minter, says JJ, it's over. No, it could be concerning depending on who Moore hires in the immediate aftermath. But Michigan returns so much production on defense next year anyway. I think that the offense is more of a concern than the defense next season. I really do. Marcus Sutton, hi Sam, congratulations on the national title. Thank you, congratulations on having a very successful season. Okay, SFS inverted. I think that because Michigan is a few drop-offs since all the players that head to the NFL, and Michigan recruiting is great, but not ever top 5. I understood your opinion on the drop-off for next year, but you said they were going to be consistently elite in the future, the far future. That's what I was curious about. Sam, I'm still waiting for that hat in the mail, LOL. Oh, wait, did I tell you that I would give you... Oh, no. That was someone else. I think I actually had a bet with someone else that if something happened, I would get them something. And I don't think it fell through, or I forgot what it was. But whatever. Yeah, this is an awesome hat. Laith Musa, good to see you back on here. Next year's going to be rebuilding year, 9-3 ceiling, in my opinion. I think the ceiling, just a little bit of an early preview of my Big Ten power rankings. I think Michigan's ceiling is much higher than 9-3, but they could very well go 9-3. Kels 14. Sam, good to see you back, Kels 14. You say that I'm actually excited for Coach Moore. You're an Ohio State fan, but I get the feeling that you're saying that in a genuine sense, not the sense of, oh, I'm excited to kick this guy's butt every year. Yeah, I think that most people, if you ask them to look objectively, would say that Sherrone Moore is that's the only replacement hire, in my opinion, right now. It's the only appropriate hire. You get to keep the culture, you get to keep the same system. Now, I think Sherrone Moore should go out of Ann Arbor to hire the coordinators, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. But I think Michigan should go internally to promote the head coach. Obviously, Sherrone Moore. But I do think that, you don't want to pull the Dabo Swinney model where you just promote from within for your assistants. You can't do that. Swinney did it for too long, and Clemson, as a result, for the past 3 seasons, just hasn't been the same. They've been good at best, really, and average or below average, or at times bad at the worst. Whether it's Will Stein from Oregon, I know they have deep pockets, but I imagine Michigan can conjure up something. Or it's such an instant reaction. It's hard to name names, but for defensive coordinator, go out and get Mike Tressel, or promote Steve Clinkscale, or maybe you want to. I don't know. There's Michigan they're a blue blood team. They're a blue blood program. There's a lot that they can do. They could hire nearly any offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator that they want to. So that is my immediate reaction to all of this. I'm going to take a brief ad break, and then we'll be back to answer some more questions. I'll talk a little bit about Michigan's football schedule, give a way too early assessment, like with the official news that Harbaugh is gone to the Chargers, of course, and then we'll conclude this. So I'll be back very quickly, guys. Okay, we're back. What does everyone thinks? What does everyone think? Sam, what happens in the game this year? Michigan loses some very key and elite players, while Ohio State's probably the most loaded team in the country. I honestly don't want it to be a beatdown. Well, here's the intriguing part from my perspective. It could be a beatdown. I just don't think it will be. I don't. And the only reasoning for that I have is Michigan's defense is going to be just as elite as Ohio State's. Ohio State will have a better secondary. I think Michigan will have the better linebacker core and defensive line. And even with Ohio State returning most of their offensive line and Michigan losing most of it, I trust Michigan's coaching on offensive line and development there and depth much more than I do Ohio State's. So I think Michigan will still be better in enough key positions to make it close, but I'd objectively rank Ohio State ahead of Michigan right now. I would. And I think Michigan is a much higher ceiling. In fact, this this might be a controversial opinion. I think next year Penn State has a higher ceiling than Michigan. Uh, I think that I don't know exactly if they have a lower floor or not. I think that Sherrone Moore is a better game manager than James Franklin, and that's positively reflecting on Moore, poorly reflecting on Franklin. But it's early still. The transfer portal's not even close to being finished, and I still have to do a lot of research. But I've really looked at Michigan and Ohio State, and I've been very impressed with Ohio State. Michigan's lack of being in the portal makes sense with Jim Harbaugh officially going to the Chargers. He's probably told transfer recruits that he's actively looking. I think that Michigan will pick up some key transfers in the next open window. Yeah. I think that I would favor Ohio State to win. That's what I'll leave it as. That's because I don't really want to reveal my way too early Big Ten predictions until I make the video, but I'll say, yeah, I lean Ohio State. I do. Right now. Overall, as a passionate Ohio State fan, I can't lie that part of me is excited about this, but I respect Harbaugh for dominating my team for the last 3 years, and I hope nothing but the best for Michigan and the Chargers. Well, thank you for your wishes, SFS Inverted. Blue, I'm also excited for the new era of Michigan football. I am as well. Moore could take the coach day route and still call plays, or should he solely focus on being the head coach? Kel's 14, I think he needs to solely focus on being the head coach. We've seen how that's worked with Day. It worked with Day until enough job pressure got on him that it wrecked his play calling. I do not want that to happen with Moore. I think he needs to go out and he needs to get a great OC. You know what? Grab Isaac Newland from Liberty. You won't have to compete with the salary of Oregon. And Newland was the primary play caller for an awesome rushing offense. Maybe you can get Caden Salter in the portal at quarterback, and right there, that would immediately change the outlook for Michigan. Bring in a quarterback that arguably by analytics and athleticism is just as good or almost as good as J.J. McCarthy last season, who's had more experience passing the ball because he's been more relied on, and you bring in a great play caller. Some people have thrown around Brian Kelly as a name to take the job, but it would be a bad hire in my honest opinion, says Wolvergeek. That's an intriguing hire for me, but I think you have to promote more. I think you have to. Ballin' with AC, Jim Leonard, that defensive hire, that would be intriguing. Or like what Laith Musa said, we could get someone from Baltimore, like a Baltimore assistant coach. Okay. Wow. Okie dokie. I don't know if the Big Ten will ever be the same with USC, Oregon, and UCLA coming along. It won't be the same, but there will be a lot of similarities. I think Oregon, UCLA, USC, and Washington will have to adapt to the Big Ten style of play. We could honestly go tick for tack on the D-line as long as we have Coach Larry Johnson, but if he leaves Michigan, we'll take the front seven. Only reason I said what I said is because I think Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant are a better defensive tackle duo than Tyleik Williams and Ty Hamilton. And I do think that Derek Moore, Josiah Stewart, and company they're right there with JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer. But D-line's very close. I'd say linebacker with Eichenberg and Chambers leaving and Houseman returning and Jason Barham transferring in. I think that would be decisively Michigan in the same way that corner and safety for now I'd say is decisively Ohio State. You also said Penn State's a dark horse to win the Big Ten, and I agree with that. I think Penn State will have one of the best offenses in the country, potentially the best offense in the country, and I'll leave it at that. Kotelnicki, plus every single one of Penn State's skill players returning, including Drew Aller, a deep offensive line thanks to recruiting and development, and a defense that reloads at linebacker, defensive tackle, defensive end, and safety. They have questions at corner. Corner's their biggest question, and they've tried to address that in the transfer portal. SFS Inverted and Chimichanga Guy have basically said the same thing. They think that Penn State's very good, but Franklin will always hold them back. Okay, we'll answer some more questions. Dan Walsh, I agree about not having to worry about him leaving every year. It's good to have your coach on campus during National Signing Day and not off on job interviews. SFS Inverted, what's your 4-year outlook, Sam? My 4-year outlook is I may be riding the high off the national title game, so I want to be very careful. But I'd say at this very moment, it's that Michigan is still a top 5 program in the next 4 years. I think they're going to be very good. I think that Sherrone Moore, after this season, I think he can come right in and plug and play with Harbaugh's system. I really do. Kels 14, Michigan does a great job of getting diamond in the rough kids and developing. Indeed, they do. They very much do. Now, what I want to do is talk about Michigan's depth chart and also take a deep dive into their schedule. So, according to mgofish.com, which I used actually for some of my earlier depth charts last season, the projected 2 deep on offense is going to be quarterback, Jaden Denegal, Alex Orji, or a transfer. At running back, Donovan Edwards, Kalel Mullings, Benjamin Hall in the rotation as well. At wide receiver, you got Tyler Morris, Samaj Morgan. You have Moore in English. Wide receiver is going to be very thin, and I expect there to be pursuit in the transfer portal next cycle. At tight end, you have Hibner, you have Klein, you have Hansen. Of course, you have Colston Loveland, who many are saying is going to be an All-American tight end next season. At left tackle and right tackle, we have Andrew Gentry and Miles Hinton. At left guard and right guard, we have Giovanni El-Hadi and Josh Preby. And we have Crippen at center, Raheem Anderson backing him up there. Offensive line is going to be very interesting, but at least we have Preby and Hinton, who played in the Big Ten last season. And El-Hadi got rotational playing time. He's been involved in that rotation for really 2 seasons now. And on defense, at nose tackle, you have Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham at defensive tackle, Rashawn Benny, Derek Moore, Josiah Stewart at defensive end, with Brandt and TJ Guy backing them up. At linebacker, you have Jason Barnham, Ernst Hausman, Rolder, and Jaden Hood. And at the secondary, Makari Page. You have Will Johnson at corner. And you have Jaden McBurrows. And, gosh, what am I doing? I'm forgetting the name of, like, one of the best Michigan Yeah, Rod Moore. That's heresy that I forgot his name. You'll also have Keon Sabb in that rotation, too, and Zeke Berry as well. This is going to be a very deep defense. There are some concerns at corner and some depth for safety overall, and rightfully so. And the offensive line, those are areas to look out for as well, and especially wide receiver, quarterback. There's a lot of questions. There are. But it's a team that I think will have an elite defense. I think we can expect that since many of these players, whether it's El-Hadi, Crippen, Anderson, Gentry, Hinton, they've been coached by Moore for years, so the offensive line will probably be a similar unit to this year, with, of course, a drop-off, but still be one of the better O-lines in the Big Ten in college football. Tight end will be awesome. Running back should be still great. I expect Edwards and Mullings to take steps forward. Quarterback and wide receiver, and I think the corner opposite Will Johnson are the main concerns of this team. The schedule, Michigan kicks off against Fresno State August 31st. They host Texas September 7th. They host Arkansas State September 14th. Again hosting USC September 21st and hosting Minnesota September 28th. So they have 5 home games in a row. But unlike previous seasons, where, it's several home games in a row and they're all cupcakes, Texas, preseason number 2 or as high as number 1, according to some sites and magazines. USC has a lot of talent. They're nothing to play around with. And before their bye on October 12th, Michigan has to travel to Washington October 5th, who's ranked in many preseason top 25s, and rightfully so, even with Kalen DeBoer leaving for Alabama, Jedd Fisch taking his place. After the bye week, Michigan plays at Illinois October 19th. They host Michigan State October 26th. Host Oregon November 2nd in an intriguing home game. They play at Indiana November 9th before getting their second bye on November 16th. They will then host the Northwestern Wildcats November 23rd, and before traveling to the Ohio State Buckeyes November 30th, and the Big Ten Championship game is Saturday, December 7th. So, tough schedule. Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, Washington, those were all top 10 teams at the end of the 2023 season. Oregon, Texas, Ohio State, I think are all going to be top 10 teams this coming season. That's a preview of my way too early top 25. Washington, USC, and I'd say even Illinois and Michigan State. Those are teams to look out for in the sense that those are anywhere from top 50 to top 25 teams. Those are teams that will provide some sort of resistance, even if it is just for a half of football. Also, Michigan State is a rivalry game, so you always have to look out for that. Illinois, it's a road game coming off of a bye, and Illinois was a young team last season, and they return a lot outside of losing Jerzon Newton on the defensive line. So, my early assessment of Michigan is there are a lot of questions, but Michigan was deep last season. They returned most of their defense. We'll have to see who Sherrone Moore hires as the coordinators, special teams, defense, and offensive coordinator. But I think that Michigan is overall in good hands, and they're still going to be one of the better teams in the Big Ten next year. Will they be number 1? Will they be number 2, number 3, number 4? Perhaps even lower than that? We'll just have to see, but I'd put them in that top 4 category as opposed to the 5 to 8 category, for example. Quarterback battle will be awesome to watch. Davis, Denegal, and Orji are the favorites unless I'm blanking. Those are the top 3 quarterbacks right now. And yeah, I would say that Denegal is probably the best in terms that he can pass. Orji, we don't know if he's a competent passer. Jaden Davis will be a true freshman, and then Davis Warren at this point is a walk-on. He's the scout team quarterback. So I'd prefer, if Michigan can, I'd like them to get a transfer QB, but maybe they don't need one. I'm going to say it, Texas is last year's Washington team. I think their defense is the weakest part of most outlets. Top 5 being that they were 113th in pass defense and were losing their 2D tackles. I do think, I'm balling with AC, I do agree. I don't think Texas is a top 2 team. I think that Georgia and Ohio State, just as examples, are decisively better than them. I think that losing those defensive tackles and not necessarily having an answer at secondary, because they haven't, their transfer portal class, again, it's purely skill position players. It is, I don't know why, yeah. Let me just pull up their transfer portal. Yeah. But tight end, Amari Niblack from Alabama, Isaiah Bond, wide receiver from Alabama, Kendrick Blackshire, linebacker from Alabama, Silas Bolden, wide receiver from Oregon State, Matthew Golden, wide receiver from Houston, Trey Moore, edge from UTSA, Andrew Mukuba, I pronounced that right, safety from Clemson, Tayo Ali Savia. I hope I pronounced that right, but I bet I butchered it. Defensive line from Arizona. Only one secondary player, and it's a safety. And Texas's weakness was more so their corners than their safeties. So I think that Texas, and I don't know, Steve Sarkisian is. I think Sarkisian is going to have to give up the play calling duties sooner rather than later because his play calling screwed over Texas against Oklahoma, nearly screwed them up at multiple points in the season, and screwed them up against Washington, where like play action pass to your tight end behind the line of scrimmage. What are you doing? You're not Georgia. You can't run that. I have Ohio State 1, Georgia 2, Oregon 3, Michigan 4, Texas 5. I respect that top 5. Ohio State and Oregon will most likely rematch in the Big Ten championship games as the money 5-6-7-5. I can see that as well. I think Oregon's going to be really good. I think that they have some losses, obviously. I think their offense will take a step back, but not a massive step back. I think just given the nature of the fact that it's a Dan Lanning program, I wouldn't be shocked to see the defense continue to improve, especially if they maintain most of their defensive staff. That's all I have to say in this video, though. We've been live for about 40 minutes in total, garnered a few views. We'll probably get some more views after this video processes on YouTube. Thank you all for coming on. I really appreciate it. And make sure to stop by for our live show tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Have a great day, guys, and I will be seeing you all around. And one more thing, just saw this and I wanted to answer it. Kels14 says Texas has been poaching Alabama. Can't wait to see what they do. I will give an answer to that. I think Alabama is going to be better than Texas next season. I do. And I think that's because not only will they have a better defense, I think that Alabama will also have a better offense. But that's because I look at Jalen Milroe plus Parker Brailsford, who's likely going to start at center, plus Jeremy Bernard at wide receiver, and plus their running back room. And just all the depth that they have, the incoming recruits. I think Alabama is going to be vicious next season. Alabama next year will be better than Alabama was this year. Have a great day, everyone, though, and I will see you all around. Bye-bye.